Okay, good evening to everyone who has joined us to this session. Initially, this was just meant to be for a couple of students who are on the MBA program at Nelson Mandela. But we then said, you know what, a lot of people came to me and said, look, we are also struggling with the same things that concern issues of the literature review. So I gladly agreed to say, let's open it up to everyone or anyone. If we were in a room, I would have gone around the room to ask people what stage they are at, what they are up to. But I think the numbers are just so many, and we won't be able to do that process. So my request is, all of you, you are welcome. I may not name all of you by name, and some of you I don't even know, but I'm glad that you're here. And I like to call this a learning space where we try to assist each other to become better. And so no one here knows better than the other. I'm going to make a request that everybody please mute your microphone. So just double check and then just mute the microphone so that we get the best possible output in terms of what we want to cover for today. So that's, yeah, thank you for that. And the microphones are off. You don't have to switch on your video as well. It's nice. We can see pictures and we see you're all well and healthy. So please, you can switch off your video so that it also helps with the delivery of learning that's going to happen. And that being said, let me welcome you all and thank you for taking time to come to this session. I know there are people as far as Zimbabwe, Nigeria, the whole African continent. At least we try to get one or two people to be part of this session. This session is meant to try and assist us all to try and understand an important aspect of the research process, which is the literature review. All of us who are engaged in some research project of some kind must conduct a literature review. And because of that, I thought it would only be prudent that we bring together a colleague of mine, Dr. Tony Masha, to come and present to us also an encouragement as we start. And then he will be able to also chip in during the presentation I will make on the literature review. We will then open it up later on to for questions and comments. And you're welcome to write comments and questions to us, and we'll see if we can assist you. And also, just to declare, there are some of you that I'm working with here, and that's fine. But there are also some of you who I don't know and who are probably being supervised by other people. So whatever you learn here does not replace the advice of your supervisor. So your supervisor becomes your first priority. I don't want you to quote me and say, according to that other guy we had a session with, he said A, B, C, and D, and then it becomes a whole messy thing. So please, 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 what we will present to you here are principles that are meant to help you, and then they will obviously guide you in doing your literature review. And so by introduction, my name is Willie Chinyamurindi. I work as a professor at the University of Fort Hare. I consider myself as a person who loves imparting knowledge to others and also being a recipient of the knowledge. And that's what we're going to learn also here from your experiences of what you are currently working on. And one of the things that I am also passionate about is capacity development. I would love to wear a hat one day in the future of developing, the next generation of African intelligentsia at a policy level. And that's something I'm looking forward to. And I think the experience we get right now working with students helps us to be able to do that. I want to introduce to you our speaker for tonight, who I've just invited to give us a little an encouragement, yes, an encouragement. He is a fellow colleague at our noisy neighbors down the road, Water Sisulu. That's what I prefer to call them, the noisy neighbors down the road. And he's a person I respect so much because we are starting to work together and collaborate together. But he has done something that I probably think I will never do, not because I don't want to, but because it takes a lot of courage and a lot of time and a lot of grit to do. He has just completed his second PhD. So you're struggling with one, he has two. So you've got no excuse. So he's just completed his second PhD, and I'm sure part and parcel of that experience will come out in his presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Tony Masha, who will also present to us. And then straight after Dr. Tony Masha, I will then do the session on the literature review, and then we open it up. And so the last request, please just double check, mute your microphone. You don't have to switch on your video. We can see you. You're looking very lovely on this summer's evening. And I see some of my relations are also here. We welcome you back there in Zimbabwe. So please mute, and then Dr. Tony Masha, I give over to you, Doc.
Thank you so much, Professor Willie Chinyamurindi. Thank you to the participants. I see it's now going for 44. I see familiar names and some unfamiliar, but you've already welcomed them. I would like to thank you for joining this session. Yes, let me share the screen, please.
Yes, you've got the privilege to share.
Is it on now?
We can see it. Yes, it is on.
That's it.
And just to mention, colleagues, we will make the presentation available. We will make the video available. So please don't worry if you are not catching up. I think the most important thing is just enjoy, and then all the other information, you will see our email addresses at the end. Everything will be available.
All right, Dr. Kwaza, please switch off your videos so that we have a smooth flow of events. Z and Dr. Kwaza, okay, Kwaza switched off. Dr. Kwaza, please switch off your video. Thank you. All right, Prof. Willie, thank you so much. This is an interesting session because when it comes to literature review, a lot of people struggle. But we'll come to that later on. My duty today is to speak to you, actually to give you tips. We've named these 7 tips to postgraduate success. So I've prepared 7 tips, although the slides might be a bit more because in some they run into 2 or 3, which I would like to share with you. Some are my own personal experiences, some are observations. I will make them available. All of you will get a copy of these slides in PDF. My first slide is titled, "Begin with the end in mind." This is a quote from Steve Covey. It has also been adapted by a certain, I think, Italian or Spanish guy. And here I always ask people who want to pursue postgraduate studies at master's or PhD level, why are you doing this study? What do you want to do with it? Now remember, in the olden days, when you did a doctorate, it meant you wanted to be in academia, but things have changed. You'll see later on that things have changed. There are people who do it because they want to go into the academic institution to be lecturers or to work in admin, and there are others that are called students in uncharted territory. These are Dr. Kwazas of this world, meaning they're already working, maybe in the public service, but they're doing it for credentialization or for the title or for promotion. And this is where most supervisors do not understand until we explain to them that don't think that every student who is doing a doctorate wants to be an academic. There is a German professor who once said at the South African PhD project at the ICC, I remember Prof. Chinyamurindi was still a doctor then in 2016. He said, if you do a doctorate, just because you want your name to appear on a business card, it's a waste of time. A doctorate is only for academics. I challenged him, and I still challenge future people about that. So begin with the end in mind. What do you want to use it for? And also, what benefits do you want to gain out of this qualification? Canfield has 3 principles, which are be, do, and have. Be committed to what you want to achieve. Commitment. Do whatever it takes and you'll have what you want. I recently got a WhatsApp message from a master's graduate who wants to do a doctorate. And she told me, Dr. Masha, do they offer PhD degrees here in East London? Or is it only in Alice? Because I don't want to be traveling to Alice. I already saw someone who's not committed here. She wants to do a doctorate, but she wants it to come to her hometown. She doesn't want to go to travel to do that doctorate. So commitment was there, not there already. Do whatever it takes was there already. So I saw someone who will not have what she wanted. Needless to say, I never bothered to respond to that text. Be a reader. How can you call yourself a postgrad student yet you're not a reader? You don't visit the library. When I read your work, I don't see any in-text referencing. You're writing a comprehension at PhD level. I'm sitting now with a doctorate that has been returned by 3 supervisors because the lady was writing like a comprehension. Secondly, she was citing old literature. Muzienwana says, studying for a doctorate may take years of intensive work and study. Don't rush. Don't think you just start today and finish in June. It's a long process. So I urge future doctors and master students to read on journals in their areas. You've got your EBSCO host, your Emerald. Read on research books and books in your areas of research. Prof says, make friends with a librarian. Everywhere I go, the first people I befriend are librarians. You may not believe this. I actually bring them gifts whenever I travel internationally. I ensure that we are very close. Even when I don't need anything, I send them a message or WhatsApp or email just to check how they are. And whatever I want from the library, I get it. I'm not very good in searching for EBSCO host and everything, but they do all the searches for me. I send one email at 1. By 1:30, it's replied with 20 journals. Make friends with a librarian. Make friends with the library. I've been in the library twice, yesterday and today at Walter Sisulu in Phyllis Ntantala. I've been the only one visiting that library. Where are PhD students? I wonder.
Close to a research area.
You also need to read on theses and dissertations that are close to your research area. Prof. Willie will share with you the ETD portal, which I've put here. How can you read on a certain topic, yet you have not read on works by other people? Download other theses. Check what's been written. What's your gap? It could be a gap on sampling. It could be a gap on methodology. It could be a gap on literature. Janssen has got 7 gaps, I think, in his book, in his chapter in a book. So don't tell me that you're just writing it, and then there's some who will say something like, this study is the first to be done in this area. I always wonder at such people. How can you call your study the first one to be done? It's actually suicidal to write that as a PhD student. It means you're not going to do your work. So you need to read. In my background, you'll see a plethora of books. If I show you my research books, you'll think that this guy is a kid that's been set loose in a Swiss shop. So let me give you this channel. If I'm reading on policy, I buy it. If I'm reading on decent work, I buy on decent. Because I believe that I cannot be writing something and not reading. I read journals, I read books, I read theses, I read dissertations, so that I have a wide view of what's happening around that area. Let's not say we don't have money. I had 3 students saying that we do have money, but we buy clothes. I said, why don't you buy books? No, we buy clothes. Be knowledgeable about your work and be up to date with current trends. We call it currency, domain knowledge. How can you be talking about leadership, yet you have not read on leadership? What knowledge are you bringing? What base do you have on your topic? Any topic that you are supposed to read on, you read to understand it clearly. I've just received a WhatsApp from my student asking me, is it a must to write a topic, to write a dissertation or doctorate in your only in your area? Like I said, you can write in any area, but you must knowledge of that area. That's why I say be knowledgeable. Tip 4, be aware. Be aware of a number of things. Be aware of the fact that there are trends, challenges, and constraints when you're doing the doctorate. Read books such as these ones I have over here, just to make you aware of what's happening within the doctorate. This is now besides your domain knowledge, just about the doctorate. How does it contribute to the economy of the country or of the continent? What are the challenges available around the doctorate in South Africa? What are the politics? I wish Dr. Shai was here. What tips are there in terms of research? And what I like about these self-helping books is that although you have various 2 or 3 editors, you also have various people contributing in it. So you are aware of so many challenges that are going there. Assignment writing, those who are struggling with assignment writing. How to write your thesis or dissertation. Burden host, research writing. Burden host again, dissertation writing. Back, complete your thesis. Canar, the confident writer. These are some of the things that enlighten you in terms of supervision generally, the doctorate itself, the doctorate journey, the trip, so that you are aware and you can contribute in conversations. Tip 5 is about supervisor-student relationship. They call it an emotional, lonely journey where students experience problems relating to supervisors being too busy to be effective in their role, tensions and conflicting perspectives within the supervisory role, selfishness and disrespectfulness by supervisors, poor or delayed feedback in relation to students' research work, and limited knowledge and expertise in the field of study. I will urge you to relate well with your supervisor. What is written here is work that is researched, it's available, it's true. We have supervisors who actually don't know anything about your field at all, but they decide to take you because of what I'll show you down here. That one is undisputable. We have tensions, we have selfishness, we have supervisors who make students travel from Pedi, where they leave at 4 in the morning. They're in their office by 8, and the supervisor is not there. You phone him, he says, do you have an appointment? We have such supervisors. It's not a problem. So much has been written on supervisory work. I've just had researched on 18 here. But these are experiences on supervisory work. And you'll find that most of what has been written here focuses on blaming the supervisor. How about the student? There's a professor who is writing an article, maybe it's out now, at Fort Hare in education, on the student as a person who should be blamed in this process. The late Marius Meyer wrote that most students think that by mere having a supervisor or a mentor, that person will do the work for you. It's not true. I didn't tell you to register. You went and registered. You went and engaged in this doctorate journey. It is your baby. We are here merely to guide you. Don't call me and say, I want you to assist me. Assist, not guide me, assist. So obviously the economic benefits And we have supervisors who are pressurized to produce doctorates and masters in a very short period. But we need you to be part of this trip. You need to be serious as well. Make us know that you're serious. I love it when students tell you, I'm in this chapter now, what we discussed the other day, I've dealt with it, I'll be emailing you tomorrow. Keep in touch with the supervisor. Tip number 6, be teachable. We've got some egoistic students who, when they come for sessions, they know it all. There are areas I usually laugh at students when sometimes you're listening to them or you're trying to guide them. And then they're trying to be 3 steps ahead of you. And because they're not readers, that's where you get them. Let me come to the issue of mixed methods, an area that I'm establishing myself in and I've read widely on. Dr. Willie told me that I've just finished and graduated my 2nd doctorate. It was on actually mixed methods, but it had 3 areas: quantitative questionnaires, qualitative, there was something called crystallization, because I used focus groups as well as semi-structured interviews in two different phases, and then crystallized the results. And I read a lot on mixed methods. And I came to understand that so many people actually don't understand what mixed methods are. They think that simply because you have used quantitative and qualitative, it's mixed methods. It's not. It's not. We need to see integration. We need to so many things that go there. There's an author called Green, whom you can read on, who talks about the elements that must be there for us to see your mixed method, your notation, your mixed method sampling. There are so many. It's a difficult process, eh? And here you are trying to teach someone on mixed method. Oh, I'm using mixed methods. Eh? This person is just using quantitative and qualitative. There's no integration. There are no sequentials here and everything. There's nothing I see in mixed methods here, but they're still egoistic. And what happens? It gets returned. Leave your ego at home. If your father was once the police director of your town, please, that was your father. Here is between me and you. You are my student. Remember, some of you are older than us. Prof. Willie is a young professor, but I listen to him because he got knowledge that I don't have. So leave your ego at home. You are not too important to listen. Listen to experts. When experts speak to you, please listen to them. I learn from people, from my own son who's just 23 years old. So be teachable. I gave a coffee mug to a young lady from Rhodes who got a cum laude after she approached me for mentoring for her MBA. And it took us 12 months to work on it. 12 months she worked on it. She listened, she was teachable, she delivered, she was keeping in touch, she did everything right. And in the mug, I wrote to her, let's call her Sikle. I don't know why I love the name Sikle, but I wrote there, Sikle, you are teachable. That's your strongest point. Be teachable. Number 7, you have competition. You have competition. Ladies and gentlemen, those who are doing a doctorate today, I'm sorry to tell you that we don't want you. Those of us who are already doctors, we don't want you to come into our turf. We want to keep our territory. Not all professors want you to be doctors, my friends. No, not all professors. There are some that are going to ensure that since they're established, they protect their privileged space. And they might give you every reason not to register you. Remember, it has now become commercial, it's business. So why should I be supervising Nangamso, who will kick me out in the next 5 years when I retire? Not all, but there are some, myself included, we welcome you, the more the merrier. So there is competition for a PhD. And we know that at the moment, both academically inclined students as well as students in uncharted territories are fighting for the space for the doctorate. South Africa is actually running short of supervisors. That's why you find some of us supervising different universities, because people are registering en masse for the doctorate. I have a slide here that I've put. You will be discouraged. The ones who will discourage you are people very close to you. It can be that old grumpy professor who can deal with women. It can be the ambitious fellow student who wants to be top of the class. It can be your spouse who doesn't value your dissertation. It can be your dean assistant in the faculty office who is determined to hold up your proposal. The list is endless. Today I was speaking to my mentee in Cape Town and I told her, if you want to have your circle of friends be less, start a doctorate. They will shrink automatically. They can't take it, most of them. Why do you think you want to be better than us? You will suffer a lonely journey because you have people that want you to remain in the same circle that you are in before. Do any of these encounters take your project forward? If they do, they're worth fighting. Stick to your path. Martha Beck says, the road that you must travel is infested by bandits and pirates, some of whom may do something to you that you have never deemed possible. She mentions the following people as people that will block your progress towards your doctorate. Please listen carefully. If you have a pen and paper, write it down. The people who will block your doctorate are your siblings, your workmates, your friends. In fact, Ariku Bokale says they are the worst people, friends. Friends with small dreams don't see the need for you to do a doctorate. Dr. Witness Royer, who graduated from being a car guard to a PhD holder, graduated on 17th of December with me, says that nobody's talking to him, even in the little college where he works. Friends, they can't take it. They can't take it when you register. They can't take it when you're studying. They can't take it when you graduate. Even pray that you don't graduate. Let me go on to my list. Your parents. There's one I still want to give you that is very shocking. Your spouse. One of the biggest people who will stop you from graduating and from doing a doctorate is your spouse. So be careful of these people. Not everybody wishes you well. We have enemies, but does that deter you from proceeding with your journey? Begin today with the end in mind. This is arguably one of the best pictures I have. And thanks to Mama Marty for having enlarged it. I have it in my office in Queenstown campus. It illustrates my journey. So when I came to South Africa, I was sent here to study. And I bumped into one Zimbabwean woman married to a Burundian when I finished my first year degree, BA in education. And she tells me, why are you in the car park? When will you do your postgrad? I said, I don't have money. She tells me, see me tomorrow morning. And she gave me a blank check. Yes, that's when I started my journey. Went to do my honors, did another honors, went to a couple of universities, UWC, NMMU, Fort Hare, and then Fort Hare again. So if I can do it, why can you not? There are so many scholarships and bursaries that are out there. Professor Willie, thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to impart knowledge to the audience. I hope that these tips have helped you, they have assisted you. I'm only a phone call away, an email away, a WhatsApp away. I would like us to ensure that we don't get discouraged. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Masha. I'm always inspired whenever you talk and the encouragement you give us all. And one of the things I love about our friendship is that we also encourage each other in the trenches and also seeking to navigate in what we want to achieve. So thank you very much. And you know what we are trying to do is to try and get more and more these guests to come to talk to us, to encourage us. And remember, I decided this to be an institutional thing. Then I thought, you know what, there are people who may not be with my institution or Dr. Marsha's institution who will benefit from all of this. Now, I'm going to confuse you a little bit because I've got a dual screen in front of me. So what you will notice is that I will be showing you a few tricks and tips here and there. So you will see me stop share and share again, so that I want this to be as practical as it can be. So let's talk about the literature review. I think for me, this is the most important part, next to the data that you collect and analyze and make the link between the two. I think this is one of the most important parts of the process of writing that we shouldn't underestimate. And for me, I'll be very honest with you, it was the most painful part of my postgraduate qualifications. I got better at PhD level, but at the other levels, I literally struggled a bit just to balance between two things here, because there are two things that you're doing here. You're not only searching for information, but you are processing the information so that it makes sense and you're able to then make a link with it to the work that you're doing. And for some of us and most of us, English is not a first language. And by the time I had somewhat of a schizophrenic experience in that I did a master's in South Africa, and then I did another master's in Ireland. So when I was adjusting to the Irish way of life, 2 years later, I crossed the ocean into the UK and I did a PhD there. And all of that also created quite a strange sense sometimes in dealing with supervisors. And but what I'm going to share with you are tips. And I want to make this as practical as possible. I hate it when we present people with theory, how to do a literature review. What is a literature review? Yeah, we know that, but I want to show you some little tips. The biggest thing I want to emphasize is that there is no substitute for quality. You must engage in the work of reading. And Dr. Marsha said it beautifully. It has become so common to meet postgraduate students who are nowhere in touch with the work that they're doing. I've got no idea. They don't read. They only read for submitting work to a supervisor. And so it makes it so difficult for us to actually, and it shows. It makes my work difficult. I've got 2 PhD students who I'm hoping will finish this year. And I can mention them, Justice and Stamper. So what we do with those 2 students is that we have monthly meetings. And in our monthly meetings, I literally write a schedule to say, okay, for this month, like for the last month, in fact, so let me deviate. I really want to show you this. So let me show you practically, because that's what we want to achieve. Let me show you a schedule that I've literally designed for them so that you can actually see how I am forcing these guys to try and produce work that's also aligned and in line with the work that a PhD student ought to be doing. So what I'm going to show you, it's going to come up on the screen now, is an activity list. And this is something I learned from a colleague of mine who said to me, look, if students are not reading, you must find a way of engaging them and making sure that they read. So what I do every month, I'm sure you see it, what I do every month is leading to, they're now collecting data, which is nice. I actually write an activity list and I tell them, okay, these are the sections that you must pay attention to, and we're going to go through them. And then the first section is I've got who are the people I think are the thought leaders in a particular area of study. And I say to them, I need you to go and engage with their work, and not only engage with their work, but to show me where you have done so. And so when they submit their submissions to me, they then submit this as a cover page. And on the cover page, they will tell me, Prof, on page so-and-so, I engaged with the work of Julian Birkinshaw, and this is the information I got about what Birkinshaw argues on page so-and-so. And so I am forcing them, literally forcing them to say, maybe it's a generational thing, maybe, and I'm not even skilled enough to blame a generational gap because I still think I'm young. But we need to get into the habit of even forcing ourselves to do the hard work that must come. A PhD is not a master's, it's not an easy attainment. You must work hard for it. And so the second thing I then do is say, okay, we also need local relevance. So you are going to go and engage with the work of Professor Boris Urban. You must find a way of finding and integrating Boris Urban's work, and right here you must show me where you've done so. Go and read a couple of special call for papers. So a journal, for instance, Journal of Human Resources has a whole special issue on a topic that you're doing. Go and download that special issue, go and engage with the work there, and you must write a narrative to explain how you've done so. And with every submission, they must make changes as to the changes I've given them. And they're working on their methodology chapter. They then go and cite an international thought leader. So watch, there's a balance between a thought leader in a discipline and a thought leader on the African continent, and an international thought leader, in this case, David Zuga, who is in America, and an African who's doing quite well in the academic circles, and the president of the African Academy of Management. They then go and engage on that literature. And then they then go and look at 10 papers, a minimum, from the same conference proceedings. I give them the proceedings. They go and look for the proceedings. They go and look for the literature. Local journals, they go to, this month we are focusing on the journal Acta Commerciae. They go and cite at least 10 papers and engage with those 10 papers from Acta Commerciae. Somebody's got a child crying in the background. Please just mute your mic, thank you. And then they go to the international journal, cite 10 papers again from the Journal of Strategic Entrepreneurship Journal. And I'm not only wanting them to cite journals, I also want them to engage with literature from policy. So I say to them, okay, the South African Department of Trade and Industry has got a lot of policy documents. Here we're focusing on DTI. Go and find what you need to do. And then in the next meeting, they must provide an update with their data collection, make sure all the references adhere to APA. And we've been doing this for the past 5 months. And I am noticing a change in the way they write. I am noticing a change in the way they interrogate and integrate and discuss the literature. And I'm actually happy because I am confident that as they proceed and as they work, something is happening. And this is something that I'm trying to also encourage other people to think about. And maybe you, in your journey, maybe you're comfortable, and what you need to do is to move away from a position of comfort. So every month, I then create a USB, and then I give them a folder where some of this information, as you can see, will be found, and then they're able to download it and work with it. Now, what does this do? Ladies and gentlemen, what this does, it forces us to do the work that we like to claim to people that we are doing. It's so nice when we meet in a mall with our friends and say, "Oh, I'm doing a PhD," because it sounds very nice and yeah, it's just appealing. Or I'm doing a master's and stuff. But the actual work, remember, we want you to contribute to the body of knowledge. There is no way you're going to contribute to the body of knowledge if you don't know what the body of knowledge or what others are saying in the field. So that's just a little tip that we use. And at this point, you know, people then run away to say, "Oh, I don't want to be supervised by this guy because he makes life difficult." And that's not what it's supposed to be. It's not, I'm not supposed to even be doing that. I'm supposed to just be saying, this is an example. And next month, what I'm going to try and do with them is I'm going to say, you set the agenda for April. You go and write down what you want to do, and then so that they also, remember, we're also training them to be future academics, and they enhance the quality of the work that they're supposed to do. Anyway, I digress. We're going to talk about tackling the, oh, I'm at the end. We're going to talk about tackling the literature review. And this is an important part of the research process, as I have said. And what I'm going to offer you are some tips. And like I said, I'm not going to be theoretical. I really want to be so practical about this so that all of us walk away with something that we can say we have been enhanced and we are better people in terms of the work that we are doing. So let's get started. The most basic thing we can talk about is to define what a literature review is. A literature review, some have called it a roadmap. It really provides us an overview of conversations that are happening in the area of study that we're engaged in. I've got a fellow colleague I work with who we are supervising. She's at Bath University in the UK, and we're supervising a student together here in South Africa. And what she does is she said it beautifully the other day. She says, basically what a literature review is contributing towards a conversation. And I said, you know, a better way of looking at it is this way. When I was growing up, I used to love going to these youth camps with my twin brother. And what we always liked to do at the end of the day is to sit around a campfire. And as we are sitting around the campfire, what we would then do is engage and talk, small talk and stuff. But everybody would have an equal opportunity to talk about the subject that we are interrogating. And that's exactly what the literature review is. It's to find out what are the talking points in the literature. And so if you know very well you want to work on a study and you want to look at the impact of the Spanish flu on job productivity, and you go and read in the literature and the literature is telling you that we're no longer talking about the Spanish flu, find something else. The literature then becomes a schoolmaster, if you like, to show you what is feasible and what is not feasible in view of the conversations that are happening. A literature review also provides two important things, and I'm going to talk about those two things: a summary and a synthesis. Dr. Masha said it beautifully. A lot of students confuse a literature review to be a summary. So-and-so states that, so-and-so states that. And I get it a lot when students want to impress their supervisor. Chinyamurindi argues that, okay, fine, but don't forget the second part of a literature review, which is the synthesis. Concerning the first part, which is a summary, we all can do that. We can all go around this meeting that we have and say to people, please summarize how was your day? Well, it was hot, sunny. I was busy with registration of students. I had meetings. You know, that's a summary. A summary really gives us some form of a recollection of facts, definitions. Okay, so in your literature review, you must define concepts. Tell us why that concept that you're studying is important. Tell us how that concept has been studied over the years. So these days, I'm doing some work and interest in this area of decent work. How has decent work, or our understanding of decent work, evolved from the time of the Industrial Revolution to even so-called the postmodern society, and the coming in of the SDG, goal number 8, which is actually enshrined around the idea of decent work. So you're merely summarizing and recollecting important facts. But the most critical part is the synthesis part. I know some of you would remember a process called photosynthesis, which is really this idea of how plants make food and all of that. And there's a change that is happening. What you are now doing is going beyond telling us the obvious, the facts. You are now critiquing, and that's another keyword, telling us where the shortcomings are in the literature. And if there's a shortcoming is not necessarily saying 10 authors in America have studied it this way, but no author in Africa has studied this way. Okay, that's rather basic, but there has to be more about those 10 authors. What makes those 10 studies not speak to the African context? I'll give you an example. When I journeyed on, my background is more in industrial psychology and now delving into ideas of strategy and business management. But when I started off for my PhD, I wanted to test a model which was based on the work of a guy called Donald Super, called the vocational self-concept crystallization. I drew the model. It was so beautiful, and I went and presented it at my proposal defense. Now, mind you, I was doing it doing this PhD in the UK, and so the three supervisors who may not be in the context that I was going to collect data in, which was the South African context. One of my supervisors then said to me, I can just hear you speak and regurgitating much of this American discourse around the notion of a career. Where is the African voice in your work? And I tell you what, I've never looked back after that comment, because what that supervisor simply challenged me to think is that it's not enough to say, well, 10 people have researched this idea, but no one has researched it in an African context. The idea that Caroline was trying to push me to think towards is that what is it about those 10 studies that do not appeal to the context that you're going to study? And what alternative do you offer? So the alternative was simple. I said, I'm abandoning the quantitative route, and I want to work with narratives and stories. And I even justified it to say, well, we Africans are storytellers. We can sit together and tell stories of what happened 10 years ago. And part and parcel of what I would like to do with the participants that I'm going to work with is to get them so comfortable to tell me stories about their experiences as people who are, or agents who are chasing a certain career path. And that was it. By the time I finished the first year of the PhD, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew where my contribution was. The only thing I was afraid of was that I wanted to break ground in that particular discourse or use of narratives in organizational behavior research. So I knew I had to work fast. I mean, there are some times where people take a break, say, no, I'll continue the PhD 3 weeks later. I mean, point number 7, which I'll show you later on. Look, the literature is fast evolving. Even where we were a couple of months ago with COVID research, and where we are now with COVID research, we are now talking about different things. I mean, a couple of months ago, we were talking about the impact of COVID in the workplace. Now we're talking about, somebody sent me a brief to say, how do people who have survived COVID dealt with the stigma that was associated with COVID. So you announce to everybody that, guys, I'll be quarantining, I've got COVID, blah, blah. And then the next time you meet a colleague at work, do they now all of a sudden want to distance away from you? How do you deal with that stigma? And every day, literature is evolving. Now, what you don't want is to lag behind, because if you lag behind, you will suffer something that happens quite a lot when examiners like me examine. I sit almost every month, I get at least a dissertation, a PhD dissertation to examine. And you don't want a scenario where the examiner reads and says, listen, there's a problem here. What this person is talking about is where the literature was 4, 5, 6 months ago. And then they will recommend you do more work. So synthesis becomes a critical part in not only positioning what you want to do, but it's a critical part in also allowing you to be able to stand heads up to say, this is where my work is going to make a contribution. We need literature reviews, like I said before, because they're a map. They tell us what are the conversations that are happening in the literature that we're dealing with. They even tell us key issues that we must understand around thoughts that are shaping people. Remember, as academics or people in academia, we are not parroting one view to a story. And I say this to some students who may come with ideological, religious consciousness and are having to face and to study very difficult experiences. I know of a student who got raised in a very traditional home, and all of a sudden had to be recommended to use a feminist theory around the work that they were doing. And they found it difficult because they already had some preconceived idea around feminism as a concept, and now they have to settle in to try and talk to this issue of feminism and so forth. So what we want is a balanced opinion where you can be a scholar and tell both sides of the story. So there are questions we can ask before we start a literature review, and I'm going to show you some tips. This is the nice part about the presentation, where I show you practically how to do these things. Is there a required number of sources? Again, I get that all of a sudden, and I don't expect this question from masters and PhD students, maybe the honors students, because they don't know better, but it should never be about the number of sources. Prof, what are the number of sources that I need to be able to say I've done a literature review? So it's not about the numbers, it's also about the quality of the sources that you're consulting. So you can go and have a conversation which is happening in a key journal with 6 authors, and actually base your entire literature review on those viewpoints. What audience are you writing for? In this case, you are writing for the academic press. What type of sources should you use? I'm going to show you some tips. And the more I do these workshops, the more I realize that some institutions may not have privileges like other institutions where there's access of information. So I'm going to show you some common tips that you could use to search for information. Should you evaluate your sources? Very, very critical. Because just because it's online and it's got a DOI number and it's got just because it's in the newspaper. I mean, there's a tabloid paper that ran a story. Community digs a trench, demons come out from the ground, and that sensational type of storyline. We must be able to be in a position where we critique the quality of sources that we use. And that becomes important because you have to be part of a conversation. You have to know where to get information. And we are living also in the era of predatory publishing. And predatory publishing simply means that there is a business going on around us. And it's a business of making sure that we make money out of so-called publishing, but the results are not always accurate. The methodology adopted, the science behind it, it's in the era of fake news, basically. We also have fake publications and fake findings that are coming out there, and we must be careful about the sources that we consult. And I'm going to show you a few tricks to be able to do that. Do you need to include things like background information? Again, those are also context-specific issues, but always remember a good literature review. I don't know, somebody's got people speaking in the background. Please, could you mute your mic? Not sure who it is. So you must make sure that you build up a background. And when you build up a background, you are also there to address the core issues. In a future workshop, we'll talk about the nuances of writing and give you practical examples to that. So there are 3 steps to a literature review. Find the source, evaluate the source, and write the review. Ladies and gentlemen, that one, write the review, somebody would say, but why is she writing on paper and pen? I want to actually show you this moment on my desk. In my diary, I still write stuff, pen to paper, as a way of not just rushing to type. Okay, sometimes it's nice, but sometimes to write and recollect the ideas it's a traditional mode. Some of you might be sharper and are able to do it better, but I prefer it this way. So we must find our sources. Our sources are everywhere, but because they are everywhere, it doesn't make them right. And I love this picture because the common sources in undergraduate assignments are Wikipedia, according to Wikipedia. And recently I'm starting to see students quoting blogs and Twitter and all these other things. But remember, we are interested in the big fish. And the big fish are not necessarily on Twitter and Wikipedia and all of those things. The big fish are also swimming at the bottom. For you to access the big fish, you must also be willing to go right at the bottom to be able to access that. So Google, it's nice. Twitter, Amazon, LinkedIn, it's nice. And I know some people who don't even read books. So what they do, they go to Amazon, type up research methodology, and they see a book by Brian Silverman, a research methods book, and they read what the book is about, and then they make an assumption to say, Silverman argues that mixed method works best in a context where you've got two research questions you want to, and sometimes it's not like that. So remember, we want you to go for the big fish, and the big fish are swimming at the bottom. The second thing, evaluate the sources. There needs to be some form of conscientious attention to making sure that you're not just throwing in stuff. If you're cooking a meal, you just don't throw stuff into that meal. You are sure and you must be certain that whatever you're putting into that meal has got some form of implication towards the overall flavor of the meal that you're preparing. So what is the rationale of the source? Is this an authority? And how do you know it's an authority? If you read further, you like to see that. So if you remember, when I showed you that thing I do for my PhD students, it's easy to identify authorities in certain areas. And then what I try to do then is to send the students to read the work of those authority figures. There's always an authority figure in each and every area of study. The date, so you can't say stress has been found to be linked to organizational turnover. Smith, 1962. Now, the point is made, but the source and the date might be a bit too old. So get into the habit of recent sources, and students who I work with will tell you that I'm very, very fussy about that. I can excuse you in the literature, theoretical literature part where you discuss the theories, but in the empirical literature, it must be recent sources. And I kid you not, some journals are already publishing stuff for October 2021. And by the time we get to June, some journals will be publishing stuff for 2022, 2023, going forward. So there's always information that's there. But ask yourself, this is your privilege of saying, is this information accurate? And the only way you know it's accurate, read the science leading to the findings. Read the science leading to the findings, and that will be able to actually help you to make a judgment of that. Is it relevant to the context and the issues that you're studying? And this calls for like a focusing into what is actually important. So those are the processes. Now, this is now the fun part where I'm going to now show you some tips on how to do a literature review. I want to leave you with 7 tips. And these are things that have worked for me. Initially, I had said 10, but then I said, well, let me keep it to 7. And then the other 2 were merely for writing purposes. I hope we're still together. And this is the fun part and the nice part of the presentation. Tip number 1, before we show you, so some people say, tip number 1 is directed to you. You have no choice. Just do the literature review. Please do not go and outsource. It's becoming very popular for people to outsource and get people to say, I will pay you to do the literature review. If there's anything I want, if I'm to walk across a podium or to stand next to a student or to say, this is my student who's graduating, is the idea of ownership, to say, hey, I did the work, I put in the effort, I put in the hours. I've got a very good friend of mine who worked on a thesis, I think in the economics realm. And the beauty about the work that they did is they worked so hard to the point that even when the results came, they didn't know that they had actually done well to the extent of getting a distinction. But what they just did was that they just put in the effort and it just worked well for them. And that's the type of hard work I'm talking about, where you're not working to please your supervisor. You're working to say, I want this to be thorough, so that if it stands in any university in any country, I will be able to they will be able to say, this is good quality work. And that's what we want, good quality work that stands out on its own. So you have no choice. Do the literature review. It's a mindset thing. Prepare yourself mentally. If you say you're not good at this, you're not going to be good at it. If you say, I'm going to try and I'm going to work at it and to get it done, and don't try and do it all at once. Think about spacing it, getting into it, and working hard to try to arrive to a solution. So the literature review is an important part of the research project. It's also one of the most painful activities for the student, because maybe it's this generation, I don't know, they don't like reading, and maybe it's because of the social media hype and craze that we see nowadays. Maybe it's also the writing part is a bit difficult. So you need to actually put yourself in the position of planning for it and working at doing well at this. So plan for it, be systematic, but also remember it's an iterative process. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, it's the one chapter that you constantly have to work at, And the nice part is that once even, that's why we do this activity with those students, because every month they are working on their literature review, and that helps improve their work. It should be continual, each day, yes. Each week, yes. Definitely not each month, because by the time you put it at the end of the month, discussions are evolving. Korea, China, they are publishing, and we want you to also keep abreast with what's happening, and I'm going to show you there. So the reflection point is really, failing to plan is planning to fail. Plan your literature review. So this first point is directed to you as an individual. Number two, you will need to have not only ICT skills, but also intuition, that hunch, that sixth sense. Now, the ICT skills are the skills we're going to show you just now of knowing where to get information. But the hunch and the sixth sense comes those moments when I remember, for me, was sitting on a bus, I had a little notebook, and I'll just be making notes as I go on. Those moments for me sometimes with publications are moments when I'm watching TV or a series or something, and then I think, wow, that's quite interesting. So I'll give you an example. I was watching a show called Numbers. It's how to use math to fight crime. Very old show on the DSTV bouquet. And then one day on Numbers, they were trying to solve a crime that had happened. And they spoke about, well, this is simple. This is game theory. People take bigger risk for bigger gain. And I said, wow, that's interesting. That's a nice way of learning about game theory. And I actually went myself and actually started reading about game theory. And the more I read about game theory, the more I realized that game theory also applies to organizational behavior. I am, in the organizations I've worked in, I will likely to take a bigger risk when there's a bigger investment that can potentially come to me. And you then can start mapping it into the work that you do. So inspiration is everywhere. But we must also tell you, you need some form of ICT skills. A lot of us are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you name all of that. But we also maybe need to join the social networking sites for academics. I want to show you some. And I apologize for those who may know this, but this is the practical part I wanted to emphasize. So I'm going to share the screen. And the first one I'm going to show you is ResearchGate. And I'm hoping at the end of this, a lot of us are going to go and go onto ResearchGate. So there we are. I'm going to share the screen. and you should be able to see the screen with ResearchGate. And basically, ResearchGate is this really, really cool platform that allows you to have interaction and engagement with other scholars. It's like the social media of academics, basically. So this is my ResearchGate profile, which you set up. You can showcase the work that you do. You can advertise the work that you do. People can see your work. This is my profile. And what gets posted onto my profile are things like latest articles. So for instance, here is a big guy in my area or who uses narrative inquiry, Prof Murray from the University of Pretoria. So I'm the first to see, he posted this about 38 seconds ago. So that's nice because I'm able to first to see. If I can't access it, I can go to my library and access it, or I can actually cite request text, and if he's able to share it, then he can share it. But have a look also, ResearchGate has added other, somebody's mic is on, there's the feedback that's coming through. Please let's mute our mics. Thank you. It's added aspects related to jobs and networking opportunities that are there, co-authors, some of which are in my university. But here are some cool things, and I saw this person is here. One of my PhD students, Viwe, we were looking for a scale. So ResearchGate also allows you a platform. Okay, the feedback is still happening. Yeah, I think it's Ndabezinhle. Please just mute or just, yeah. Thanks. So what
Manyaza and Ndabezinhle and Gilmore, please mute.
Please mute, thank you.
Manyaza, Ndabezinhle and Gilmore, please mute.
So ResearchGate allows you to be able to ask a question. So this person, Naina Kuma, one day ago asked the question, how does one access the Cranate survey data on HRM practices? And what happens is that it tells you the people who've read. But what I want to do, I want to show you some questions I've asked. So this is the one we asked on career development, and we got some answers. A few months ago, or almost a year ago, I think, in 2019, I was looking for a scale. I said, I'm looking for a scale that focuses on intention. And the intention scale allowed, so the question was, we're working on a project that seeks to link university satisfaction with those issues. I'm looking for a scale that measures the following. 41 people read that. Some people even started following. So because they had the same questions, and it was also a good opportunity for them to be able to see. And then what it also does, it gives you possible answers. And then Deborah writes, interesting question, but it is not clear to me how you're linking. So already what Deborah is now doing is saying to me, listen, I get what you're saying, but how does the two link? And that's already a platform for engaging with other scholars. ResearchGate also allows you to be able to download information. So let's say you're looking for information on recent work, and then you enter decent work. It will tell you the researchers who are working on decent work. It will tell you the projects that have been registered on decent work. It will tell you the publications that have been published.
Sorry, Prof.
Yeah.
Sorry, Prof. It's just getting unbearable.
It's
what
unbearable,
is doing. Yes, is it possible for you to mute it on your side? Because I'm struggling to hear you. And before him, I was able to hear you
Gilmore, iPhone, please mute. What I think they did is they logged in and then they left.
Oh,
yeah.
To mute them, yes.
Oh, you can't mute them on your side, Prof.
You see now I've got a dual screen. So on one screen, I'm seeing the slides. So
how do I mute? Let me see.
Yeah. Maybe.
I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, colleagues, please, let's just mute our microphones. iPhone, somebody with iPhone, I've muted you now. Please, let's just mute, we're almost done. Okay, thank you.
Mute Gilmore and TS.
Yeah, no, I'm the one speaking. Sorry, Prof. I'll mute now.
All right, I think it's better now. Thanks for that. So it will tell you also questions that have been asked about decent work. It will even tell you where jobs, if you like, but it will also tell you publications. And this is the part I like, because some of us are from institutions where our libraries might not be so well resourced. Here is a paper which has just been published in 2020. You're able to download it. And as you download it, you can actually then have the paper. If it's one of those where you don't have access to it, Ryan Duffy here, you can just click request text and the paper will be able to be sent to you. So for me, that's one of the most crucial aspects to actually leverage some of the benefits that are there, or sometimes the challenges that people might have in terms of issues related to the access of information and data. There are other things that are here, and because of time I won't be able to show you, but I can talk about them. Listservs are just like this morning I joined a listserv for the Irish Academy of Management. It's basically an email list where you then get sent emails about a particular topic and areas of interest in that. Google Scholar, you know them, but I must talk about this one, and this one is one I love so much because the NRF has invested a lot of money on this one. So let me show you this one. It's called the National ETD South African Thesis Portal. I'm going to put it on my screen, and then I'll project it for you and I'll show you how it works. And this is a nice platform for actually finding out what others have done or are doing in your area. And then when you do that, it actually gives you a chance to be able to know what angles and gaps you can take. So this is and it's becoming popular. Almost most of the major developing countries have put this one on open source that people can access. This is run here in South Africa by the National Research Foundation. Anyone can access it. This is just a thesis repository. Master, sometimes you see some honors ones going there, master's, PhD thesis, and sometimes publications published featured here. So let's say, for argument's sake, I am trying to understand the issue of gambling in South Africa. It will tell me all the institutions that have submitted their theses online. And this is why sometimes colleagues, you hear, give your thesis to the library so that they put it up. This is the benefit here. So what you can then do is this. I want to look at gambling. Okay, I can just say gambling and then search. And then what it then does, it searches all the dissertations that have been published around the theme of gambling. And you can see the first one here, towards the regulation of interactive gambling, the role of government in South African government industry, an exploratory study of responsible gambling as far back as 2007 at Rhodes, treating gambling addiction. So you can just open any of those, and as you open it, it will tell you the keywords, and at the bottom there's a handle. If you click the handle will send you to the institutional repository. In this case, this is for UNISA, and right at the bottom here, if you click view or open, you will then be able to download the entire dissertation that this person has done. Please, we do this not that you go and download people's work and you keep it and you start plagiarizing, but you do it also, number one, to see examples of how others have tackled your topic in terms of structure, but also to also identify possible gaps that may exist in the particular literature that you're working on. So that's also nice and also handy for the work that you want to do. Library services, even a RaySoft calculator. Let's say if you're struggling to find the sample size, the calculator is there. So the internet basically is got quite a lot of stuff that you could use. Let's go further. Tip number 2, systematic literature reviews are also a good platform of searching for information. Now, a systematic literature review is a publication, but it's a publication that is written in the format of a literature review. People are writing a paper of a literature review, and they're basically trying to do some work for you in terms of doing that. So always look into it. And I wrote here the reflection point: tap onto what others have done, not just copy or observe, but to contribute. And that is why we do systematic literature reviews, not so that you just then copy, but you observe. I want to show you an example of how do you do a systematic literature review search. And so what I'm going to do again is open Google, and then I'm going to share the screen. So anybody in the text box, please type a topic that you are interested in, and then we'll show you how you can search for a systematic literature review. So fastest hands first, anybody in the text box to just type any topic they're working on, and we'll show you how to do a systematic literature review. AI in Durban. Okay, I'm assuming that's artificial intelligence. Dylan Nigel. So how this would work, Dylan, a systematic literature review would not tell you in Durban, but what you can do is you can see the Google there. You can actually say artificial intelligence, and then don't stop there. Please put the word plus, and you say systematic, and there I think it almost came up. Systematic literature review. And so what it then does, we then search for it, and then here are some examples of systematic literature reviews. Let's open one of them. And so and again, it takes us to ResearchGate, so that actually heightens the importance of ResearchGate. I saw Quinta female genital mutilation. Okay, we'll do that one, and then we move on. So here is a systematic literature review paper on AI in Durban. And so what basically they will do, they will tell you the criteria they've used to actually come with this paper, the findings that they've got. And once they're doing those findings, they're actually telling you where the talking points are in the literature. Let's do one more. I think Quinta has sent something there. And we could say female genital mutilation, and then we say systematic literature review. And then, so there are articles. Here is the first one by Zwinski, female genital mutilation. By reading this paper, Quinta, you're then able to find out what those talking points are within that particular literature that you want to research and work in. Okay, so that's a bonus and a nice way of just keeping tracks with what is going on. So systematic literature reviews work because they are summaries of papers that have been done. Number 4, normalize reading articles. Dr. Masha spoke about that. Please normalize reading articles. Make sure that a week does not go by, even one article a week, of just saying, okay, I want to understand how they've done this. You know, it also helps. So here are some tips in terms of reading. And my son likes to use this because I learned it at their school, what they do. It's not just about reading. It's about reading with questions, reading with relevance. Reading with questions allows you to find a gap for your work. Reading with relevance allows you to be able to link a significance of your work. Visualizing, I had a crazy friend of mine when I was doing my PhD in the UK, who would literally, after they've done a literature review, turn their room into like a studio, and then record themselves. Imagine they're being interviewed by the BBC or Sky or Channel 4 to say, joining us from the University of Canberra is so-and-so. Please could you comment on the challenges of decent work in the UK? And then they'll start recollecting, okay, there are issues that are shaping, those typical Soma Dadafikeni type of interviews, where you're just wondering, how does this person know all of the stuff that they're doing? Because they it's on the pulse, they know their work. So mind maps also work, traditional. Make inferences, and the reflection point for me is tap onto what others have done, again, not just to copy or observe, but to contribute. I would have gone through a paper that we've just published today where we look at an example about reading with in questions and relevance, but the tips are there. Number 5, consult others, other credible sources. Academic language can be daunting, so normalize reading, because once you read, you're then able to adopt the type of language that is needed. And I know very well, sometimes our language as academics is a bit here when we're trying to say something so simple. But we normalize reading so that it becomes a good source of not only literature, but also enhancing our understanding and also intelligence gathering about our phenomena. Nothing is more dangerous than a researcher who has one pair of glasses. And the researcher of one pair of glasses is the type of researcher who just is not a habitual reader, who just reads for meeting a deadline with a supervisor, but does not read to try and part of the idea of a contribution. I want to show you something which I think all of us should be part of. These days, I'm all big into communicating the work I do to newspapers, to media houses, and this is something somebody has encouraged me to say, look, there's no point in you writing about the informal economy in Premier Oscar Mabuyane's budget speech, and you cannot relate it. There's no point in doing research in that area, and you can't relate it with what is happening on the ground. So here's a nice resource that you could use. It is called the Conversation Africa. Basically, it is a platform we as academics have, and I've logged on to my profile, so I'll be able to show you some of the analytics that I've done there in terms of the work that I've done. So sometimes when you read a newspaper article, you can hear them say, taken from the conversation. So what I do then is, today we've just published a paper on mental health in the African workplace. And we want to turn it into an article to actually argue on World Mental Health Day that organizations must be paying attention to developing and improving mental health conditions. And then what we then do is then we write an article. And then, okay, so these are the authors that write at my institution, or different articles, and it's really our little trophy area where we celebrate. And it's also nice because our institutional advancement team sometimes picks up, not sometimes, they always pick up these articles and they disseminate it, and they've been helping us in terms of actually getting our work to be known. But it's not also about writing about your research. It's also about writing about something that touches you. The most common where do we go? Summary here. Okay, the one of the most interesting thing about, I want to show you something. Sorry, just give me a second because I want to go to my profile, not the institutional one. Okay, there we go. Visit my dashboard. Okay, so now the most common thing is that you've got a dashboard where you write your article. An experienced journalist helps you to shape your article. So when we started the COVID-19 situation that we were in, I wrote this piece based on some research we had done on how academics can manage shutdowns. And what it then did is I wrote for one publication, which is The Conversation. But have a look at this. The Conversation published it. It reached 4,995 people. Silicon Republic in the UK, in the US, University World News, all of these, Modern Ghana is a newsletter, all of these publications also picked up and ran the story. And even on Twitter, it tells me the people who retweeted that article. But it's not only about writing about your work, it's also about writing about things you're passionate about as an academic. So if you, a year ago or a year and a half ago, Oliver Mtukudzi died, and I wrote a piece for The Conversation, and this is by far one of the most widely circulated one, 7,204 reads, Forbes Africa. So all of these newsletters, I even got an interview with a TV station in Nigeria to say, please, we read that article on The Conversation. So you can also write about different areas and different things related to your work. But then what this does, colleagues, if we go back to the website, is that if you are then struggling to say, oh, I'm doing stuff on female genital mutilation, or about the impact of COVID, or maybe somebody says stress. I want to study about stress. You can go and search about stress, and it will tell you all the articles. A colleague of ours with the Academy of Science, Aliza Leroux, wrote about what animals can teach us about stress. So what she has done is taken research that she's doing, turned it into a way that can be consumed in a non-academic, non-threatening audience. And it also helps people like me and you who are trying to look for gaps in our work to be able to identify that. So the conversation, brilliant platform to be able to share your ideas. We're almost coming to the end, so bear with me. So normalize this idea of credible sources. Remember, nothing as dangerous as the academic or a researcher who only wears one pair of glasses. Make sure you've got multiple pairs of glasses. As you read, be also a professor to your own academic writing improvement or your own academic writing project. And I kid you not, I carry this with me when on my desk when I'm working, because there are sometimes when I'm reading someone's work, I say, wow, the English here is good. And whether we like it or not, part and parcel of the challenge is the challenge of impression management. It's a challenge of saying to your supervisor, instead of saying, this research, I saw this one today, a student wrote in their methodology section, the research will use a qualitative approach and a quantitative approach to in its orientation. And I said, well, why can't you just say the research adopts a mixed method approach? What you have said in 6-7 lines, you can actually say it in 4 lines. So the lesson is, as you read other people's work, you yourself are becoming better. One of my favorite theorists is, yes, academic language is daunting, Tandekile, but it gets better as you learn from it. And I'm going to show you a little trick here. The gentleman next to Barack Obama here is Albert Bandura. Albert Bandura is very famous with the social learning theory. And Bandura's argument in his theory, and sometimes I hit myself to say, hey, Bandura has made a name with this social learning theory. I could have figured that one out. I mean, he just said it and boom, he's widely cited. Bandura emphasizes the importance of the following: observing, modeling, and imitating. Observing, modeling, and imitating. And I want to show you how I have done that in the work that I do. So what I'm going to show you is a very difficult article I once read. But sometimes when I'm wanting to improve myself in terms of understanding further, I go and read this paper, and I want to show you some little tricks about what Bruce and Hunt do in this paper. This article is published in a journal called Strategic Management Journal. It is our AA journal within the strategy literature. So I want to show you some cool, clever things that they do in this article. The article is called Learning to Plan and Planning to Learn: Resolving the planning school /learning school debate. Now, this is an article, so your thesis will read differently, but watch what they do. Listen to the first line. No, let's go to the introduction. A recent debate between 2 prominent strategy academicians considers a question vital to theory and the practice of strategy. What they are doing here, they are not doing what you and I would do. Strategy is defined as the plan that an organization makes to achieve it. So what they do is that, okay, forget the definition. Let's present you to a war that is going on. There is a debate that is happening between these 2 contending forces. On one side, the debate is about, so they tell us what the debate is about. What types of planning school firms utilize in their strategy formation behaviors. Now, instead of saying, according to ANSOF, look at what they do. ANSOF, comma, flying the planning school flag. So what they've just said is, okay, on one side of the debate is ANSOF, who is pushing this planning school flag, contends that formal planning is both beneficial in both stable and unstable environments, and they put the reference for ANSOF. We can talk about technical adherence and referencing in another class. while Litzberg articulating the learning school view. And at this point, sometimes in my office, I start to clap my hands and say, wow, they've just presented the contending views in a way that is interesting, that I want to read. It's like watching a WWE match. Bobby Lashley versus The Miz. And The Miz is running all around with his viewpoint. Bobby Lashley is in one corner running around with his viewpoint. Now, watch what they do next. While Litzberg, okay, favors this paper presents a resolution to the debate, and they are very bold. They are saying, well, let them have their viewpoints. We want to resolve this. And by the way, them wanting to resolve it is a subjective thing. So they're just trying to say, if you've got a problem with our resolution, you write your own paper, tell us what you think. This paper presents a resolution. Now, watch what they do. Few issues, look at this, few issues have attracted more attention in strategy research than the relationship between strategic planning and economic performance. Regrettably, they're now saying is that these are the issues, but sadly, people are missing the point. And this is the point that people are missing. Decades of the planning performance research have yielded inconsistent findings. And you know what? Over the years, now as I listen to what people are saying about inconsistent findings, I say to myself, they are now positioning the contribution of their work. And they are cleverly doing that. It is a beautiful, beautiful article. Words like tedious, instead of saying there is a weak link, using words. So it's about learning a language and being able to adopt the language. And then the last point for tonight, which is, and then we open it up. Here's the last point. We put up this and share. The last point is, so you have the best lesson point of yourself. The last point, the iterative process of literature reviews. My friends, it is not enough to say, I have finished the literature review. Supervisor, here you go. I will not do the literature review again. The literature review is an iterative process. Reminds me of this song, which is taken, and it's become a very popular song. It's called The Never Ending Song. This is the song that doesn't end. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they are going to continue singing it forever, just because this is the song that doesn't end. And that's what a literature review is. When you start it, you keep on working at it. When you've finished it and you think you're done, you go back and you work on it. The danger is if you leave it and then you try to come back to it, it's a bit tricky. And that's the exercise that I'm doing with my students. If you want to listen to the song, I've put a YouTube link. But guess what somebody did? I love the creativity of the internet. Somebody then went and recorded the same song for 10 hours and posted it on YouTube. And the song is only about 1 minute, 30 seconds. So for 10 hours, you can listen to the song. And if you like, here's the lesson point. The literature review is an iterative process. You keep on going at it, going at it, going at it, going at it. It is the most crucial part of your work because it seeks to help you to locate your work and your contribution to the greater good of what is happening. Ladies and gentlemen, we've gone a little bit overboard, but thank you for listening. And I hope these tips will help. I'll be able to forward you the slides. What we can do, not only directed to me, but there are some academics who are here. People can post, and I see Dr. Marsha has also uploaded his, in the chat box, his presentation. You can also drop me an email. I didn't put my email address, but while we are doing that, let me put my email address. And are there any questions or comments? And then we'll be able to take those questions or comments. Dr. Marsha, please also drop your email in the chat box as well. I'm dropping mine in the chat box. So any questions or comments or even contributions people would like to make or bad positive experiences people have had with literature reviews, we can open it up maybe for 5 to 10 minutes and then we close. Okay, I think we were clear. I might not see some hands, so you can just unmute yourself and ask your question or comment. Yeah, I don't mind. And Dr. Masha has also put his email address. Okay, we are absorbing everything. I'm glad you're absorbing. No questions or comments? I think we were clear, Dr. Masha. Okay, there's no point in tarrying. Okay, thank you for attending, and we wish you well in the journey ahead, not only in research, dissertations, publications. Some of us are always learning, but I hope all of us have benefited and will become better writers. Dr. Masha, any last words, and then we close.
From my side, thank you so much, Prof, for that. When people are told that a literature review can take 1.5 years, they think it's a joke. You submit your thesis today, graduate, and then you see some more information and you regret what you submitted earlier. But lastly, I think is the issue of linking it to your research objectives and your research questions. Remember the golden thread from research objectives, question, research review, discussions, and how you're going to end your study. There should be that link. Don't forget that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues, and we're wishing you all the best. Watch out for the next one. Maybe the next one we're going to do will be on academic writing, and somebody says, it's daunting. Maybe we'll show you how to become better at it. But you become better at it by reading. You become better at it by consulting others, and also just being kept abreast of what's happening in your literature stream. Thank you very much and have a great evening. Stay safe.
Thank you, Prof. Willie.
Thank you,
Dr. Masha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Willie. Thank you, Prof. Masha.